Hello, and welcome back to the Lancaster Farming Industrial Hemp Podcast. My name is Eric Herlock, and I've got quite a show for you today. We've got 3 different guests. They're very different, but they're very interesting. First, we're going to talk to Beau Whitney. He's an economist who says that Big Cannabis is hurting the hemp industry and is costing the fiber and grain sector $20 billion a year. Then we're going to talk to a guy named Eric Kleffner. He's a game developer in Colorado who is building a play-to-earn video game to help educate the public about industrial hemp. And finally, we're going to talk to Rachel Berry. She's an Illinois hemp farmer, the founder of the Illinois Hemp Growers Association, and she's the director of regional leaders with the U.S. Hemp Building Association. We'll take a quick sponsor break, and then we'll get right back to it. This episode is brought to you in part by New Holland Agriculture. New Holland is a proud Lancaster County company with a strong global presence. For over 125 years, they've been building, selling, and servicing machinery to help farmers feed a busy world. You can learn more about this world-class leader in farm equipment at newholland.com. This episode is brought to you in part by IND Hemp in Fort Benton, Montana, where their mission is to provide innovative agricultural products and services to connect American farmers with the pioneers and businesses that see hemp as a way to bring lasting change to our communities and planet. IND Hemp. This episode is also made possible by Amerishon Cast Hemp, who will be hosting a hempcrete demonstration and workshop in Washington State this September 7th through the 11th. More information is available at amerishon.com, and you can click on that link on the show page for this episode at lancasterfarming.com. Otherwise, Cameron McIntosh from Amerishon Cast Hemp is busy with hempcrete projects around the country and will also be speaking at an event in France this October with OG hempcrete builder Steve Allen. I will have more details on all of that stuff on future episodes. Okay, welcome back. So, do you notice anything different about today's show? Is there something missing? Well, here's what happened. So today, I made the mistake of reading the comments on the Lancaster Farming YouTube channel. So just so you know, every time I publish an episode of the podcast, it automatically goes to the YouTube channel for Lancaster Farming. So you can enjoy our content on YouTube as well. And so today I was poking around on the YouTube channel, and there were some comments on some of the episodes. So I made the mistake of reading them. And on the episode from a few weeks ago with the Global Hemp Association's National Variety Trials, there was a comment by a guy named Dan Juleff, who I believe is an Australian man named Dan Juleff. And here's what he says, and I'll read it. Not in an Australian accent, because I won't do that to you. But he says, "Hi, mate, sorry for the criticism, but do you need to have the music on all the time, even when you are talking? It is so annoying when I just want to hear what you were saying. I just want to hear you. You don't need extra. When you start the show, cool, have your music, but when you start talking, kill the music. Your show will be 100% better. Please do one show for me without the music. Thank you." All right, Dan, this is for you. This is your show without music. How about the rest of you? Do you like the music? Do you want to have the music back? Let me know. I would love to hear from you. But Dan, also, I have a little bit of criticism for you. Actually, not criticism, just more like advice, right? Maybe it's really just one word. And forgive me if this comes across as passive-aggressive, but the word that you need to look into is punctuation. It's really going to make your communication skills in this world a whole lot better. So look into it, punctuation. Anyway, I've got a little bit of news before we get into our interviews, and this news is about the Pennsylvania Hemp Summit. They've changed the date, the location, and the price of the Pennsylvania Hemp Summit. The new date is November 14th through the 15th, 2022. It's now going to be taking place at the Farm Show Complex in Harrisburg, and the price has been dropped to $150. So you can learn more about this at pahempsummit.com, and I'll have that link on the show page with all of those other links for you to click on. And I'll have more information about the summit as we get closer to it. But anyway, let's get into the show. Last week, I guess it was last Friday, I read a story on benzinga.com. It was written by Beau Whitney, and it was about how Big Cannabis is essentially attacking the hemp industry and creating all kinds of problems and essentially costing the fiber and grain industry $20 billion a year. That's a lot of money. So let's talk to Beau Whitney and see what's going on here. Beau Whitney from Whitney Economics. Welcome to the Lancaster Farming Industrial Hemp Podcast. How are you doing?
Good. It's good to talk to you again, Eric. It's been a long time.
Yeah, it has been. So recently you published an article on benzinga.com. The headline is "Duped by Big Dope. The Big Cannabis Attack on Hemp Has Cost the Fiber and Grain Industry $20 billion a year." So, first question, who is Big Cannabis and what are they doing to have such an effect on the fiber and grain sectors?
There's a lot of well-funded cannabis operators out there that view hemp-based intoxicants as a competitive product line relative to what they have going. And so, these well-funded entities have access to legislators and policymakers. And as a result, they've leveraged their connections and their influence in order to narrowly define hemp as a drug rather than looking at it as an industrial product or industrial application or industrial plant.
A commodity crop, yeah.
Industrial commodity, exactly. And as a result of by exerting their influence here, then, and they're leveraging their big law firms and their big trade associations. And so what they're doing is they're creating this false narrative. And the false narrative is hemp is a drug. And then by saying that hemp is a drug and then leveraging the influx of Delta 8 and Delta 9 and Delta 10 on the market, hemp-derived Delta 8, Delta 9, Delta 10, then they're declaring a public safety crisis. And then to make matters worse, they're saying that hemp cultivators are a front for international cartels and human traffickers. And so this narrative to block the competition of intoxicants into the market, this narrative has caught hold in legislatures all across the country. And as a result, without looking into the details, these legislators are creating legislation to suppress the growth of industrial cannabis or hemp, and really control it as though it was a Schedule I drug. And, the Ninth Circuit just came out saying, if it's specifically to Delta 8, but it applies to other products, if it's hemp derived, then it's legal by definition based upon the 2018 Farm Bill. The DEA has opined similarly, easy for me to say, similarly. And so there's this attack and definition and villainization of hemp. And unfortunately, what's occurring is because of all this suppressive legislation, it's impacting the fiber and grain industries at a time when they should be experiencing significant growth, right? But they're not. They're in significant pullback because of all of these uncertainties around regulatory and legislative policy.
So there is some, like safety concern around, the Delta 8 and Delta 10, that sort of thing, because you don't know who's making these products, right? But that should have nothing to do with the fiber and grain side of things.
Yeah. And so this has been an attempt by these large, well-funded entities to block the competition or not allow it to even enter into the market. And there's been examples in, I think, 19 states where hemp intoxicants have been legally deployed and have been regulated in such a way as to prevent youth usage and prevent, unsafe products from entering to the market. And so the Delta 9, Delta 8, and other intoxicating hemp producers that I've talked to, and I'm talking to them across the country, what they're saying is that none of them want this to get into the hands of the kids. They want people that are responsible consumers to have access to it because it's a legal, viable, agricultural based product. And so I don't know of anybody that wants it in the hands of, or inappropriate use,
Sure.
or in the hands of kids. So there are these mechanisms whereby you can deploy this into the marketplace. It's a legal product. You can deploy it and regulate it. I mean, an endorsement at a grocery store, similar to alcohol and tobacco, where you have to check IDs, is one area where it's been successfully deployed. And so that's a model, a viable model, rather than treating hemp as a Schedule I drug. And that's what a lot of states are doing. They try to do it in Colorado. They're doing it so in Oregon. And there's California as well. So rather than control the hemp industry, there should be policies that regulate it appropriately, depending upon product intention, but at the same time, having policies deployed that support the growth and development of other aspects of the hemp industry, such as fiber and grain.
So you said it's costing the fiber and grain $20 billion a year. So how do you determine the value of the fiber and grain sector? And then, I guess how big could it be if Big Cannabis wasn't doing this?
Yeah, that's a great question. So my firm took a look at some of the survey data that we have based upon a national survey for hemp operators that we deployed in Q1 of 2022. And we were looking at the percentages of revenue associated with breeding and cultivation, processing, product manufacturing, and retail. And we saw a real significant and disproportionate amount of revenues derived simply from cultivation. And we saw a significant gap in revenues on average on the processing side and the product manufacturing side. Now, previous research by my firm has showed that one of the gaps in the market is product manufacturing. And a lot of those gaps, based upon my research and interviews and all this, has been that regulatory murkiness and legislative murkiness has been the cause for lack of investment in infrastructural development. So when I looked at normal markets, when I looked and compared even to the adult use market, the percentage of cultivation relative to, processing and product manufacturing. And then when we've looked at the value chain going from a markup from cultivation, then marking it up for processing, and then marking it up for product manufacturing, and then retail, I noticed this massive gap in the revenues derived by processing and product manufacturing. I mean, it sounds kind of complicated. It's not really. It's just the mapping out the value add of each step in the value chain. And so when I did that, I was like, holy smokes, there's this huge contraction in the revenue projections rather than this huge projection and increase. And then when we calculated it, it's actually much higher. It's more in the 30 to 35 billion. But my firm is very conservative when we put out our numbers. And so we reduced that, judged it down to 20 to 25 billion. And that's per year, right? And so, and there's, based upon my consumer research in the hemp space, especially on these non-intoxicating products, there's a significant amount of demand that's untapped. And the only reason it's untapped is because there's not products out there. And so when you have legislation that suppresses the growth, suppresses licenses, suppresses market entry, then that's the result.
Right.
And it's unfortunate, and those products aren't entering the market, and so consumers don't have access to them. Now, I have concerns about this, and so I've sent some letters out that said that I won't deal with people that are involved in potential collusion, because some of these trade associations have in writing told me that they will not support competitive products entering into the marketplace, and that they won't support embracing some of the regulatory changes that I've proposed at the policy level, such as checking IDs in grocery stores, because it's a viable agricultural product. And so they've said we won't support that. We have grouped together as an organization of trade associations, and
is this on the cannabis side, the THC side, or on the hemp side? On the
on the cannabis side.
Yeah, yeah.
And so you've got large cannabis firms, you've got their attorneys that haven't necessarily called out their conflicts of interests and saying that they're representing hemp, but really they're being funded by Big Cannabis. You've got that scenario. You've got the trade associations that are getting the ear of the legislators on the cannabis side and then saying, oh, hemp is horrible. Hemp is a drug. Hemp is a public safety. Hemp is cartels. You've got all this. And so, that's the ripple effect. And, legislators in general, they try to work with people that they trust. And so when there's not a strong lobby at the state level for hemp firms, and when they're underfunded and under duress because of falling prices, either on the cannabinoid side or the fiber and grain side, when they don't have a seat at the table and other people are taking shots at them, the result is lack of access to market. And the result is unfavorable legislation that inhibits the growth of the market.
Right.
And so that's all I'm calling out, and when here's an example. So I've looked at deploying adult use cannabis in some states. I've done these economic analyses and economic projections and research projects, and they go into significant detail. And when I looked at the model whereby you deploy adult use and medical cannabis in your grocery stores or in your 7-Elevens, the market expands rapidly. It drives out illicit activity, which is one of the public safety concerns of regulators. And it gives more opportunities for businesses and for suppliers into the space. It gives more equal opportunities for minority business owners as well, right? And so this is a model that's really viable, that's not really being considered right now at each individual state level for adult use and medical. When I apply that very same model to hemp and saying, hey, these Delta 8 products, you can regulate this by, checking IDs, having this widespread retail distribution that's controlled, the cannabis industry just would not even consider that. Now, if cannabis instead would support the hemp industry and this distribution model, then as soon as full federal legalization occurs, they have this precedent that's been set, and they could expand their market. They could expand opportunities for minority and women-owned businesses, for smaller operations. They could essentially eliminate or significantly reduce the amount of illicit activity. And then they have a real proper market that's really beneficial for the entire adult use medical industry. So, like I said, when I proposed this model to embrace hemp and then use that as a precedent, they would have nothing to do with that.
Right.
They said, no way. And then that's when I started getting bombarded with insults and threats and all this stuff. And so I just basically wanted to highlight these models in an effort to help educate folks that, one, hemp is not a drug in all cases. Hemp is a viable agricultural product that has massive industrial and grain applications, and that there are alternative models rather than villainizing it as a Schedule 1 drug, and that the impact that this false narrative is having is massive. In fact, the impact last year was greater than the revenue of the entire legal adult use and medical market,
Wow.
And so people think that hemp is this small little cottage industry when it's not. It's in automobile manufacturing, it's in plastics or alternative plant-based plastics that are environmentally friendly and sustainable. There's these hemp in construction and textiles, and it's a US-based industry. So you're not relying on global supply chain with a massive carbon footprint and geopolitical concerns that need to be considered. So, I'm just kind of scratching my head when it comes to, people don't realize all these applications. And I think it's really doing a disservice to the hemp industry from my perspective, economically, morally, ethically. It's doing a disservice to the industry, and wanted to highlight this behavior so that it can be brought into light and potentially stopped.
Right. So this wouldn't be the first time that hemp has been sort of maligned as a drug because of competition from big industry, right? I mean, that's sort of the story of prohibition back in the 30s.
Yeah. No, there's been this narrative out there that there's big cannabis and little hemp, and that hemp is the little cousin. But I've done some analysis on market shares that have already been gleaned in Europe in the automobile industry, where 20% of some cars are made from hemp. And, in support of the EU sustainability goals. And then I've presented at the UN on sustainability and supporting UN goals for 2030. I mean, these things are legitimate. And when I do the analysis and extrapolate that into plastics, foods, animal feed, textiles, and then it's in fact the hemp industry that is the big sister, and the adult use and medical market is really the little cousin.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I have nothing against marijuana or cannabinoids or THC, but to me, it should be the footnote to the larger hemp industry because there's just so much potential there.
Yeah.
You mentioned, federal legalization. One, do you think that's coming soon? And do you think that would sort of alleviate it? You describe in your article this two-tiered system, this two-system approach to cannabis and how it's not working.
Yeah.
Would federal legalization just handle that?
Well, what's going on right now federally is that federal regulators, and as a result, state regulators, don't know how to manage this line of demarcation at 0.3% THC, which is the definition of hemp versus marijuana. Mm-hmm. And so they don't know how to manage that from a regulatory perspective. And so as a result, they're not managing it very well at all. And one thing that is notable is that federal regulators and state regulators begin and end the regulatory purview of hemp at the farm gate, right? So as soon as it's defined as hemp, then it's relatively unregulated. Whereas with higher THC cannabis or adult use medical, you've got heavy regulatory footprint throughout the entire process from seed to sale. And so one, it's defined at the farm gate, others, it's defined throughout the process, and so federal and state regulators are having an extremely difficult time managing this. I think if there were some regulatory changes, even included in the next upcoming farm bill, that said that hemp remains a viable agricultural commodity, But in some instances, when it's intoxicating, you can regulate it at the product level rather than at the farm gate level. Then it would be similar in nature to higher THC cannabis, and it would be appropriate regulatory strategies, because it wouldn't necessarily just stop the definition at the farm gate. Right. Here's an example. I was in a roundtable discussion with the staff in Mitch McConnell's office. He's the Senate Minority Leader.
I've heard of him.
Industrial hemp.
And he was a big driver of the farm bill that was favorable to hemp and brought it into the mainstream agricultural industries. One person in that meeting said, I produce roof tiles. Why do I have to test my roof tiles for THC content? And so that's just one example of where, if you regulate it at the product intention level versus regulating it at the farm gate, then it would just make sense. It would make things a lot easier.
Sense. Yeah.
And so, can there be interim changes prior to federal legalization of adult use in medical? Sure. And there would be reasonable, and they would be effective, and they would kind of address this whole perceived public safety issue. And it would address some of the concerns by both industries on, intoxicating products. Right. And so there's some interim solutions. And then at the same time, hemp can be used as a example of how to regulate it post adult use and medical legalization, because there's, it's already in the marketplace, and there's already viable distribution channels that aren't Schedule I related. And so there's a lot to learn from both sides. But rather than learning from each other and complementing each other, there's this massive villainization of the hemp industry by Big Cannabis. And, it's just unfortunate, and it's having significant economic impact.
Are you following the exemption, the hemp exemption that a few different groups have teamed up to work on, the Hemp Feed Coalition, National Hemp Association, and Agricultural Hemp Solutions? They're trying to get some language into the next farm bill that would exempt, based on product use, the grain and the fiber.
I haven't seen anything in writing. I've had some conversations. So it's really tough for me to do the kind of the unbiased economic analysis of these proposed policies. But what I do know is that the continued villainization of hemp and defining it strictly as a drug rather than an agricultural product is, that's just foolish and needs to stop. Right.
Yeah.
So, it's interesting because I was at a Cannabis Regulatory Association, and the Hemp Roundtable was presenting there, and the Hemp Roundtable proposed making the definition of hemp even stricter, even more strict. Instead of 0.3% THC delta 9 by dry weight, they wanted to have it 0.3% total THC. And so this would have a devastating effect on the industry. And they proposed that in front of all of these adult use and medical regulators. And that was a little bit of a head scratcher for me, because it sounded like their position was, if you reduce the amount of THC in its definition of hemp, then you eliminate the potential for it to become productized in terms of intoxicating effects. And so it just, I was really stunned by that. And so even some of the hemp advocates and trade associations are sending mixed messages, and, that's unfortunate, because it's not the intoxicating product producers that are being impacted by this. It's the fiber and grain side.
Right, because some of those fiber varieties, they're going to go hot. Like some of these, like Chinese genetics, they go hot. Not super hot, but, it's like, I don't know. It's frustrating.
Yeah, I'm in the process of putting together a survey to hemp cultivators to see just how much, if their crop tested hot, just how much
Hmm.
and trying to get a feel for the range in which these crops have tested hot and what the economic impact of all that was. And maybe that can be the data point for FDA, USDA, and Congress to use to kind of reset what should be the definition of hemp.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that survey out yet?
It's just in the process of being deployed. Yeah. I've
Okay. If you
got a
can,
couple of things going on, but yeah.
all right. I offer this platform to reach
Oh,
other
awesome.
hemp folks. If we can, if it's not ready yet, in a few weeks when it is, let me know, and I'll let our audience know, and they can.
Yeah, I'm
click the
trying to
link
have the data available for the National Industrial Hemp Council's annual conference.
Okay.
And that annual conference is in August,
Oh,
August
it's coming up.
22nd, 23rd. So
Okay.
I want to get a couple of weeks worth of data inputs and then do the analysis and then do a short little white paper on it. So
Okay.
yeah, stay tuned on that. But thank you
Yeah.
for that offer. That's very generous.
Absolutely. Yeah. All right. So last thing, what can regular people do? What can, folks in the hemp industry do to this? Like, would you recommend contacting their lawmakers? What's the way forward here for the hemp folks?
Well, I think hemp folks need to be an advocate for their own industry. They're just not, they don't have a voice. And if they do, it's not very strong right now. It's not very loud. When I was at this cannabis regulatory association, the head of the Kentucky Hemp Farm or Hemp Regulatory Group, Kentucky Hemp Regulatory, the head of that said that there are no viable economic products in the hemp industry other than CBD. And that's coming from Kentucky. And so I walked up to her with some of these hemp-based cutlery that, in full disclosure, I have a hemp plastics company that distributes cutlery all over the country. And I've got,
Sure.
and so I handed her a knife, fork, and spoon made basically 100% from hemp, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I said, I'm hoping to sell 100 million of these this year. And what do you mean there's no economically viable products? Look at hempcrete, look at plastics, look at the automobile parts,
Look at hemp protein, look at the food. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so once she had those in hand, then she realized, oh, maybe there are some products now, but I just haven't seen them. Well, so I think in terms of advice to people in this industry, they need to show their products and need to show that there's a viable industrial and grain application that people can latch onto and really understand. And so by showing and demonstrating these viable products, even if they're proof of concept and not to scale yet, that would go a long way in educating people and changing their mental mindset, especially at the political level, changing their mental mindset that hemp is not a drug. Hemp has multiple applications, and we need to support the growth and development of the fiber and grain sectors in the hemp industry.
Amen to that. Beau Whitney from Whitney Economics. It's great to talk to you.
Yeah, it's great to chat with you again. Thanks so much for this opportunity. Really appreciate it.
All right. So what do you make of that story? I know you can't tell when the interview ends because there's no music to alert you to that. Thanks, Dan from Australia. Anyway, so if you have comments about what Beau and I just talked about, shoot me an email. Send it to podcast@lancasterfarming.com. All right, my next guest is a former hemp farmer, current video game developer who is working on a pretty interesting project that I was curious about. And if I'm curious about it, maybe you are too. Let's see. Eric Kleffner, welcome to the Lancaster Farming Industrial Hemp Podcast. How are you doing?
Fabulous. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so the reason you're here today is because you are developing a game centered around hemp. Can you tell me what it's called and what it's all about?
Yeah, it's a fairly new idea. It started back in March, this idea that I started journaling to create a play to earn hemp farming game. And the idea based off of, how hard it was to farm over these last 4 years and how much, blood, sweat, and tears, and then how many unseen things that you don't think about goes into hemp farming. And so I wanted to create a game to educate people about all the ins and outs and how hard it is to hemp farm, and then all the uses for hemp farming as well, like the hemp plastic manufacturing, the hempcrete, buildings, and hemp biodiesel, and all these things people don't know about. I wanted to create a game using those as well, so combining kind of the farming aspect in with the use aspect of it.
It's sort of like educational. It's almost an educational tool.
Yeah,
Okay.
and then I wanted to make it quirky and fun and addicting as well, and also have it so you could earn crypto, which in crypto terminology, it's called a DAO token. You can earn a DAO token, which brings in real world use cases into the game, where if you are an owner of the crypto DAO token by playing the game, you get to vote on proposals using the funds from the NFT sales and the game sales. You can propose an idea like, we should build a hemp plastic manufacturing site in Michigan or something. And then everybody goes on this little platform and votes on it and decides what they should do with the funds that's getting funneled into this token.
Okay. All right. So I have a bunch of questions there, but first go back to the hemp farming. So you had been a hemp farmer, and that's where your interest in hemp came from. Can you tell me just a little bit about, where you were farming and what you were doing?
Yeah, I started in Brighton, Colorado. I farmed my first 2 years there. In the beginning, I had kind of just clones everywhere and seeds everywhere in my bathroom and in my bedroom and in my garage. And I was just kind of bootstrapping the whole thing, carrying plants over in my Impala and planting them in the ground in Brighton my first 2 years. And then I met my business partner, Jordan. And this is my company for farming is called infiniteorganics.org. You can see the products there on that website. And we farmed together in Fort Collins, and we did well. We farmed under a pivot on a 100-acre farm, but we only had 15 acres in the pivot that we were leasing out. And then
one slice of the pie.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And we harvested there, brought some of our stuff to distillate and crude and isolate. So we got started with building products and our line of products there. And that was 2019. And then 2020 came and we wanted to farm again. And so my business partner, Jordan, his family's big into Hatch chilies.
Okay.
In New Mexico, that's where he was born and raised.
Peppers. You're talking peppers.
Yep, peppers.
Yeah, okay.
Yep. So, when I first got together with him, he had mentioned that he has family and farming in New Mexico. So once we got burned here in Fort Collins, we got literally burned by the snow. It frosted our whole field, and, we still had a harvest, but then, the snow and the wind definitely made us kind of, I don't know, distasteful for Colorado farming. Okay. We were like, let's not do that again. Let's try somewhere hotter and less crazy with the wind and the snow. So we did New Mexico in 2020, and we farmed well in New Mexico. I mean, the plants got big and we had a big harvest. We only farmed like 15 to 18 acres there, but we did do an organic plot. And we had 3 separate plots too, one on the border of New Mexico, one in Hatch, New Mexico, and then one little bit north of Hatch, New Mexico. So we were farming up and down I-25. It was crazy. I can't believe we pulled it off. And, we had one field that we planted in August in the border of New Mexico and Colorado. And that field, I thought it wasn't going to flower because we got hit by snow in September. And so I was like, I just kind of threw that field away. But then we came back in November and the plants, the Bubba Kush was flowering beautifully. And I was like, oh my God, wow. Literally like God. I was like, this is crazy. Farming's crazy.
So you're not farming hemp now, because I imagine you produced a lot and you're sort of still sitting on that inventory, right? So there's no need to grow more. I think everybody is kind of in that same boat with CBD.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we ended up shipping our hemp from Hatch, New Mexico, all the way up to Steamboat. That extractor went out of business. So then we loaded up a semi again, brought it down to Kersey. Then that extractor went out of business. So we loaded up a U-Haul this time because we had kind of we threw it in the grinder and brought it to a little bit smaller amount, and then brought it to an extractor in Loveland. And that's where it's sitting now. So it's been 2 years of crazy up and downs getting it turned into distillate.
All right. So you have these years of experience in the craziness of growing and producing hemp, and you're like, let's make this into a game so other people can experience the joys of this craziness.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I want to make it so crazy that, like I want to make it so agricultural department, I'm going to call them the red coats though in the game. And they're going to show up to your field and test your plants randomly and make sure you're below 0.3. And then if it's not, you have to burn your crop, which actually did happen to me on one of my fields in 2019. I had let a field go and I had to burn that field and send them a video of the burned material. And what in the world? It's so crazy.
Right.
It's mind blowing that we have to do that.
Right. That's not going to happen if you grow corn, right? They're not going to show up on your farm and be like, look, yeah. So yeah, we've got some work to do here with the regulations. So, all right, back to the game. So it's a play to earn, and it sounded like you described like everyone playing it sort of earns collectively, and then you can decide on how to spend what you've earned. Is that?
Yeah, exactly. So, I'm starting out, I'm thinking I'm going to do 10% of the NFT sales is going to go to this DAO tokens funding pool. And then the people who own the DAO token will be able to vote on what to do with those NFT sales money and propose different things. My vision of it is to bring in hemp communities, hemp tiny homes, and kind of build a plot of land with tiny homes on it. And then once we get the people moved into the tiny homes made of hemp, then we can build a building and build like a plastic manufacturing site that actually is revenue generating. So it's sustainable. Everybody's making money on the community. And it's all kind of into this DAO, which is not owned by me. I'll just have like a vote on what happens, but not a large vote. I want most of the votes to go to people that own the token. So they'll be able to vote. So it's going to be an interesting humanitarian experiment with the community owned DAO, which DAO stands for Decentralized Autonomous Organization. So it's new. I mean, thanks to blockchain and crypto, we're able to have this new company organization called a DAO. And it was new to me. I mean, a year ago, I didn't know what a DAO was. I just thought it was like a bunch of board of directors that sat on a crypto coin, and they were all random people,
Yeah. All right. Well, so I have to admit that I'm not a gamer. I'm not a crypto person. I don't really understand blockchain at all.
I'm just learning it as well. So.
Yeah, so it's fascinating. I mean, what I've read about like cryptocurrencies is that like you mine them and they're very carbon intensive, which to
that's
me,
what I've heard about Bitcoin and Ethereum.
All right.
But there are some tokens that don't mine.
All right.
And I'm still deciding on what blockchain to build it on.
Okay. Because I feel like anything that's carbon intensive, like sort of like works against the mission of hemp.
Yeah,
right?
Totally. I agree with you there. So I'll have to make a tough decision at some point whether I'm going to go on to Solana, which Solana, I believe, is its own blockchain and it doesn't mine. And then there's Polygon, which is, I guess, on top of the Ethereum blockchain. So Polygon probably has some sort of carbon footprint. And then there's other blockchains like Cardano that's its own blockchain as well that I don't think mines, but I'm going to have to learn about these. And I kind of want to just go on to all the blockchains, and that way people holding any token can play the game using that token. So,
well, how can people play the game now? Like, is it ready for prime time? Is it out there?
I'm in seed funding stage right now. So I'm just putting together the game on the outline right now. And that's been fun. And I had another business partner, but he decided that he wanted to compete against me. So it's kind of fun. I have a guy that's creating a very similar game as me, even though it was my idea to create the game. So, the ups and downs of this industry is crazy. You don't really know who to trust until it's kind of, you already got a little bit burned. But I look at life as, everything does happen for a reason, and maybe some healthy competition is a good thing. I mean, it is pushing me to go a little bit faster and definitely see this vision through, since it is my vision to bring hemp communities to real life using this game.
All right. So for people listening out there who are interested in learning more, like what should they do? How can people get involved? Talk to me. Tell me how to, what do you need to happen next?
Yeah. So you can go you can go whitelist to the game. Whitelisting is a way to signing up for the game before it launches. And you can go to hempty.org, which is HEMPT.org. And it's kind of an abbreviation for Hemptopia. I wanted a shorter domain. And that you can go on and click to RSVP and whitelist to the game. You can also see my CBD product line on the game. So that's kind of unique about it, as well as that I have a product line. A lot of crypto companies don't have products. So you can buy products on there of CBD that I farmed the last couple of years, and then that helps fund the game as well. So 2 different ways: whitelisting and then buying product.
Okay, so whitelisting, and you said hempt.org?
Yep, we got it.
All right, cool. Well, this is interesting, and I'm looking forward to seeing how it develops, and I wish you success in your endeavor.
Yeah, thank you, Eric. You're my first podcast on this, so it's
well, hey.
Yeah. Thanks for my opportunity to be in front of the world.
This is it. Yeah. All right. Well, and people can reach you at that website. Like if they want to get in touch with you, send you an email, send you a bucket of money. I don't know.
Yeah, you can email me at eric@hempty.org. You can find me on Instagram at Hemptopia Game. Twitter is Hemptopia Game. And then I also have a Discord, which is that's definitely new to me as well. Discord is, I'm not used to all this messages coming in daily. It's like, And what else do I got as far as social media goes? TikTok, I did create a TikTok. That one's Play Hemptopia. So I want to put out more content like this for people so they can get excited and learn about blockchain and hemp farming.
All right. Eric Kleffner with the play-to-earn game Hemptopia. Thank you so much for your time today. Very interesting.
Yeah, thank you, bud.
Okay, so I'll have all the links of all the things he just talked about on the show page for this episode at lancasterfarming.com. All right, so how's it going with the no music thing? Are you okay with this? Do you miss it still? I kind of do. What am I going to tell the band? What am I going to tell the Tin Bird Shadow? They're fired? You guys are out of here? No more music? Oh, that's so sad. Anyway, my next guest is Rachel Berry. She was on the show a couple of years ago. She's a hemp farmer out there in rural Illinois. And it's great to have her back again. So let's find out what's happening in Illinois. Rachel Berry, welcome back to the Lancaster Farming Industrial Hemp Podcast. How are you?
I'm doing really well, Eric. Thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah, so I guess the last time we spoke was almost 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Well, last time we spoke on the show, because I've seen you since then.
Yeah, correct.
And you've been doing a lot of stuff in the past couple of years, but we'll get into that. So you are a hemp farmer in Illinois. I want to say like Princeton, Illinois. Is that right?
Yep, North Central Illinois.
Okay. And you are also the CEO and founder of the Illinois Hemp Growers Association.
That's right.
And you were with the U.S. Hemp Building Association too, which you hadn't been working with last time we spoke on the show.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I started as secretary and moved into my position now, which is the director of regional leaders.
Cool. That's awesome. So we'll get into that a little bit. But first, just tell me how things are, with you on the farm. How is your hemp planting going this year?
Yeah, actually, things are going on the farm really well this year. I think we've had some of the best weather this season that I've had growing hemp at all so far. So that's been really nice. I haven't had to do any extra watering or worry about irrigation or anything like that. Just the rainfall we've been getting and the sunshine has been enough to get my plants to about 3 feet tall now. And I planted with International Hemp. I'm growing the B Lab. I planted that May 24th. So it's been just over a month now, and the plants are doing really well.
Cool. How much did you plant?
I think I have a little under a quarter acre this year.
Okay. But that is a fiber variety, the B Lab?
That's right. That's right.
Okay. And then what are you going to do with it?
Well, the goal is to continue my trials. So I've been doing trials, just trying to see, what my yield expectancy is. I want to build with it here on my farm. Mm-hmm. But I'm thinking that this hemp this year is probably going to go to my chickens and my ducks. It's probably going to end up animal bedding.
Yeah.
but hey, it's so useful, and I think it performs a lot better than just straw. So I'm excited to even have it for that purpose. And I do some crafting and paper making and stuff like that too. So I'm sure some of it will be put aside for some crafting.
Okay. Tell me more about your farm. You grow more than hemp, I assume.
Yeah. I grow heirloom vegetables. I raise poultry, so I got chickens and ducks, and I actually just introduced geese to my flock this spring. So I got some baby geese as well. But
Okay.
yeah, heirloom, tomatoes, specialty crops, pumpkins, corn. I'm always changing up what I do. I'm kind of an eclectic
Hmm.
grower, so I get bored with the same thing all the time.
Right.
So I'm
Got to
always
mix it
switching
up.
it up, but
Yeah.
yeah, and experimenting with what will grow well with my hemp also.
Good. And then where do you market that stuff? Are you involved in local farmers markets or what? What's the
Yeah,
plan there?
it's all local. Most of the time I have folks come to the farm and kind of farm stand
Hmm.
purchase from me, but I have family also that, is always very interested to see what I've got uh in that season.
To see what they can eat, right?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
That's cool. Is the hemp growing on your farm like in a pretty prominent spot that when people come to the farm stand, they see it and you can use it sort of as a talking point?
Absolutely. Yep. You got to pass it on the way.
Okay. And what do the local folks up there in Princeton, Illinois think of your hemp?
I it's a tight knit community. So when you bring something, like hemp or cannabis into, a tight knit community, there's always, there's just the newness of it that gets people talking. But overall, I think that, it's pretty well received. I'm actually going to be, for the first time in a couple years, I think since 2017 or 2018, I'm going to be doing some community work, getting out there, showing people what hemp can do, talking about my work at our local farmers market on Saturday. So I'm looking forward to getting out there and just, really being with the community after, the last couple years of just being hit or miss. But yeah, I think from what I can see on Facebook, it's people are excited that I'm going to be there on Saturday. So I'm really looking forward to it.
Good, good. Okay. And then with the Illinois Hemp Growers Association, how is that going?
It's going well too. We are getting less growers as the years go by. That's for various reasons that we don't really have to divulge in. I think we all know the
Right.
hemp industry is just kind of up and down, and we do have less growers, still growing mostly for cannabinoids. But I am seeing a lot more fiber growers, and that's really exciting. Many of our members, I've helped out getting international hemp seed. I'll buy it in bulk, and we'll split it off and from a bulk order. That's been continuing, and we have more growers that way. And then, yeah, events. We have lots of events coming up for IHGA, and that's really exciting. I think I'm booked all the way until the first week of October by this point,
Oh, wow.
with all kinds of different things. And we can talk about events now or at some point, but yeah, there's lots going
Well,
on.
yeah,
And
sure. Tell me about the events that you're doing.
sure. Okay. Events. Well, I know I already mentioned that I'll be kind of very local in my hometown this weekend. And then moving from that, we have the University of Illinois has their fiber and grain trials. They're having an open house, and that's something that the IHGA supports and sponsors. So we're excited to go and, join the university and see how things are growing this year. Go over some of, the data that they've collected so
Hmm.
far this season, connect with others who are interested in learning about what's going on, at a university level with hemp. And that's coming up July 7th and 8th, I believe, are those open house dates.
Okay.
And if you do show up, bring a sun hat because we're going to be outside. It's going to be sunny. Also, I have the Illinois Cannabis Training Center just outside Chicago has invited me to come speak on July 21st. That's very exciting. I haven't worked with this group before, and it's great to get into the city and just meet other farmers and growers. I have an event with a local hemp farmer called Tulip Tree Farms, Liberty Prairie Foundation, and Prairie Rivers. We're putting on a hemp education and soil health education open house. They have a farm stand there at their farm on September 17th. And actually, my husband and I, who also works with IHGA, will be splitting off on the 17th of September because he will be at the Southern Illinois University's Hemp Symposium that night too.
Oh, cool.
So I don't know if much has been sent out about that from the university yet, but definitely folks be on the lookout for that in Southern Illinois area. And then wrapping up the month of September, I am working with an IHGA member and a local hemp farmer to host a farm bill discussion and farm tour and an open house for their brand, which is AM and PM Hemp Farms. That's the 24th. So, and I think I have something in October. I'm forgetting, but
All right. Busy
there's
though.
lots going on. And then the main thing, of course, I don't want to forget is I have been invited to join the Illinois Department of Agriculture in the Ag Tent at the State Fair this year.
Oh, wow.
So that's the second and third week of August. And I'm absolutely thrilled to be involved in that work.
Cool. Yeah. You had mentioned that there's more fiber growers joining your association. Is there any movement towards processing capacity there?
Yeah, there are. Well, I think as you always know, there's always kind of whispers and plans in motion to get fiber growing. And I don't want to spill the beans on anybody here, but there seems to be some really good progress being made on, an Illinois owned processor.
Okay.
Maybe you saw on the news also, I think it's called Dun Agro is coming to Indiana.
Right. Yep.
So that's really exciting for all of us, even here in Illinois, looking forward to seeing how that progresses. But so far, that's really, that's the big news is Dun Agro coming to Indiana.
Yeah. Cool. And then let's talk about the U.S. Hemp Building Association. So tell me first how you got involved with them and then sort of what your path was.
Yeah, when I got interested in hemp, because I own a small farm, I have animals. My farmhouse is 120 years old. There's always projects on my mind, building in one form or another. So when I first learned about hemp building was, a big selling point for me to become a fiber farmer.
Yeah.
So I did some hempcrete training with Tiny Hemp Houses and John Patterson out in Colorado. Just fell in love with just just working with this material, how fun it can be, how community based it can be, and all the benefits that come along with it, and knowing that I can grow this. At the time, I couldn't grow it in Illinois, but even that spurred my interest in bringing a hemp bill or getting a hemp bill passed in Illinois. But so yeah, just learning about hempcrete, hemp building, and getting that experience, led me to the USHBA. And after just working through the IHGA with the USHBA through, various projects, meeting folks at expos and events and stuff like that, I was approached by the USHBA and was asked to run for board of directors. And I did. And I did make a position. I became secretary and I held that position for a year until last September when we had a little bit of a shift in how our roles were going to work. And I took over the position of director of regional leaders, which has been really exciting to work with folks from, all over the country, watching them and supporting them as they educate their communities and share the message, put on events where people can actually touch and hold and, get a feel for what these materials are going to be like, in their own homes or contractors or, hotel owners, you name it. So many different people, people who had never even heard that hemp can be a building material.
Right.
So it's been great just to connect and support, that work that's going on. And we're still looking for a couple regional leaders. We have some positions open.
Oh, okay.
So if anyone's interested, we're looking for region 3, 4, 5, and 9.
Can you be specific as to what those regions are?
Oh, yeah. So region 3 is Idaho, Montana, and Wyoming.
Okay.
Region 4 is Colorado, Utah, Arizona, and New Mexico. Region 5, North Dakota, South Dakota, and Minnesota. And then Region 9 is pretty big. That's Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Delaware, Massachusetts, Vermont, or not Vermont, I'm sorry, Virginia and West Virginia.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, anyone in those areas who's, looking to take on a little bit more serious of a role promoting, the USHBA and hemp building materials in the US, please reach out. You can reach me at regional.leaders@ushba.org. We have meetings every month on the second Tuesday. So if it's just something you want to learn more about, we'd be happy to have you join a meeting.
Wow, that sounds like a great opportunity for a handful of people. So listeners out there, I encourage you, get involved. Yeah, cool. I am like super grateful that I happened to meet Cameron McIntosh, sort of early on in my hemp exploration. And, just the work that he's doing here in PA and around the country. It's been just fantastic to watch the stuff he's doing. And,
absolutely, like such a role model, definitely. And I feel the same. I was lucky to meet him, and we have some kind of in the works plans to hopefully bring a workshop of his out here to Illinois. So that's exciting too.
Yeah, and his workshops are great. I've been to a couple of them now here in Pennsylvania, nice. And it's just hands-on. And he gets into more than just building with hemp. He also gets into some aspects of running a business and some accounting practices and just things to make your life as a hemp builder a little easier, or a lot easier.
That's wonderful. Yeah, so needed, because those components are very important.
So what else? What else can you tell me about your life in hemp?
Well, it's exciting. Like, it's had its ups and downs, and every season though, there's nothing like getting those seeds in the ground. It's just amazing. And the reward is pretty quick. Like, not only do you have this really cool plant growing, but it brings so much joy and, excitement, intrigue to others. I like to have people come over and check out the hemp as often as I can. I open it to community members, to my legislators. I like to invite them over, law enforcement, pretty much anybody who's interested in just being able to connect with the community through this plant in that way is just, it's so rewarding.
Good. Yeah. Education is the key to everything, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And it ties in, to local food and our local economy. And, there's something for everybody when you start a discussion.
Cool. All right. Well, Rachel Berry, it's great to catch up with you. Thank you for your time today.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime, Eric. It's been great to talk. And yeah, if anyone is looking to, get in touch with me through the IHGA, just find out more about, how to connect with the Illinois hemp community in Illinois, you can reach me at rachel@illinoishga.com. We're also on social media, and you can find me on LinkedIn.
Cool. And if you send me all of those links, I'll put them on the show page for the episode, and people can go there and click and connect. And
perfect.
Hopefully we'll find some of those regional people that you need for the USHBA.
Definitely. Thank you so much.
Yeah, so Rachel Berry from Illinois. So she did mention a bunch of events, and I have links to those at lancasterfarming.com on the show page for this episode. I recorded this interview a couple of weeks ago, so one of the events she mentioned, the University of Illinois Hemp Trial Tour, that has already taken place. But the rest of the links are on the show page for this episode. So thank you for listening to today's show. My name is Eric Herlock. I am the digital editor at Lancaster Farming Newspaper, the greatest agricultural newspaper in the world. So I hope you will check us out online at lancasterfarming.com, get a subscription to our paper, sign up for our newsletter, and just check out all of the amazing content that my team provides to the world of agriculture. All right, and finally, this is for Dan, down under Dan Juleff, who doesn't like music under his talking. All right, well, Dan, I thank you for being a good sport, and also, I've never interviewed any Australians on this show, so do you know any Australian hemp people? Send them my way, please, please, please. All right, so until next time, I will see you in the newspaper. This episode of the Lancaster Farming Industrial Hemp Podcast is copyright 2022 by Lancaster Farming Newspaper, part of the Steinman Communications family. Today's show was written and recorded, edited and produced by Eric Herlock. And the music that you did not hear throughout today's show is courtesy of Tin Bird Shadow. Sorry guys, you gotta go. Dan doesn't like you. You're out of here. That's it. Tin Bird Shadow, you're fired. Get out of here.